we will be in and around those relegation spots. There is no doubt about that. We're not going to kid ourselves.
Hi there, welcome to another episode of the Premier League Predictor. Today we're going to be talking about Bournemouth, who are another side that have come back to the Premier League after a 2 years absence, and they'll be bringing with them Scott Parker, who has himself got some critics to prove wrong. But we've got, more importantly, a good guest that will be talking us through Bournemouth. So I'm delighted to have Craig from the Up the Cherries in All Departments YouTube channel. But before I check in with Craig, make sure you subscribe to our channel, more importantly. Give us your likes and comments as we go along. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you also check our other episodes as well. We've got a number of clubs that we've been speaking with, so make sure you check in, and I'll make sure that's added to the cards right now. But Craig, absolutely delighted to have a real Bournemouth fan to discuss about their chances, and more importantly about last season as well, because on your YouTube channel you've got it for everyone to see how glorious those scenes were at Dean Court as well. But yeah, the emotions of that kind of promotion run, how has it been for yourself? Have you kind of got over that now that you're in the Premier League?
To be honest, that day against Forest was brilliant. And the funny thing about that game was it was due to actually take place in February. And because of Storm Eunice, it didn't. The Forest fans, of course, turned around and said, oh, it's because you've got 6 injuries. Lerma was suspended, but when you look at the rest of it, those injuries were players on the fringe. So it works perfectly for us. A lot of Forest fans were saying, we're coming for you, we're coming for you. And before that game, I was really nervous because it was the penultimate game of the season and Forest were right behind us. We'd recently drawn 3-3 with Swansea and beat Blackburn away from home. Forest had gone and they went and beat Fulham and then beat Swansea, which set it up perfectly. I was nervous before that game. And the great thing was we held them at bay. There was a shot that Sturridge hit, and to be fair, it hit the crossbar. Travers couldn't really do much about it, but on that 83rd minute, it was off the training ground, and it was just perfect. A pass from Billin to Kiefer Moore, who just put it straight into the corner, and Brice Samba couldn't do anything about it. And it was an amazing day. But it could have so easily gone the other way if Surridge had scored that goal. You know, it could have easily been Forest's. But we was worried about going into the playoffs because we was concerned that we might not get through them because we'd been in the top 2 pretty much all season, Adam. But really, when you look at our statistics in the Championship, Fulham we drew against twice, so undefeated against them. Forest we beat twice, beat Huddersfield twice, beat and drew with Sheffield United. The only team that actually got a result against us was Luton. And it really goes to show they beat us 3-2 at their place, and we beat them here. But it was. So should we have really been worried? I'm not so sure. I think we did everything, within our power against those teams. Where we struggled was the teams lower down the table. We only got 2 points off Peterborough, for example. Reading, to be fair, at Dean Court should have beaten us. We should have been about 5-0 up against them at half time, and in the second half, it just completely collapsed. And you thought, what's Scott Parker done there? Is he tactically naive? And I'm sure we'll come on to that, but I think it was an amazing season. How it started was brilliantly. 40 points from the first 17 games was no easy feat. and it was only Preston that beat us. They beat us all the time for some reason. Preston, we can't seem to beat them. They're our Achilles heel. That started a little bit of a wobble, and after all, we only finished 2 points behind Fulham, and could have easily, with better results against Peterborough and a win against Reading, we would have won the league.
You've sold my thunder when you're talking about the stats, because that's the thing that I was going to allude to about Bournemouth. Was it seemed defensively we were quite strong, but at the other end you needed to take chances or take more of them, it seems, because you were creating quite a lot. And obviously, the one thing I want to draw on is, do you think that January transfer window business really helped you get over the line? Because there was a number of signings in that window that I think everyone from the outside, certainly myself, and I know a number of friends and people that I know, really thought Bournemouth were going to really get over the line. The likes of Siriki Dembele, who was on form at Peterborough, for example. Todd Cantwell, which I appreciate we'll discuss. I don't think he really did as well. But there was a number of signings, like you've said, Kiefer Moore as well. I mean, he was really frozen out at Cardiff, but everyone knows about his credentials with Wales as well. So did you get that same kind of feeling that after that transfer window business that helped you?
To be honest, I was a little bit worried about one of our outgoings because, of course, during the January window, we actually let go of Steve Cook. Now, Steve Cook, earlier in December, I should say, we played against Fulham and he just leapt in front of the ball twice and made unbelievable blocks. And it was rumoured for some time. I actually invited him on my podcast, and it was quite an interesting interview that I had with him, because it was before the interview was recorded about November time. He'd been a bit frozen out by Scott Parker, and then he was called back in literally after that interview, put in some great performances, and it was rumoured that he was going off to QPR, and ended up at Nottingham Forest in the end. So that was a bit concerning, that outgoing. It looked like it was going to happen. With the incomings, Dembele was phenomenal. He was brilliant. You know, when called upon, Shriki Dembele is good player, and I think he will find his place in the Premier League. Whether or not he'll start, I'm not so sure. Of course, Ryan Christie is a brilliant player himself, and I think, but he does offer something a little bit different. Todd Cantwell, as you allude to, come here with lots of promise, but I don't think he really. I wasn't really convinced by him. I'm not sure what's happened to him, because at one point he was being rumoured being linked with Manchester United, and I thought, wow, this is a brilliant signing, but I don't know if his love of the game's gone out of it, but especially in that Reading game, I think his positioning wasn't right, and I don't think he really got back into the swing of things after that, to be fair. Kiefer Moore offers, and again, it's probably one that I should save for when we talk about Scott Parker, because so I'll save that one till we speak about Scott Parker. Signed Freddie Woodman as backup to Travers. Nyland, earlier on in the season, when we saw him, didn't do particularly well. He went off to Reading and didn't do particularly well there either, by the looks of things. But the other signing was Nat Phillips. And Nat Phillips is a player that we should try and get across the line at all costs. Personally, if I was Jeff Mostyn, I would be saying to Liverpool, okay, give him to us on loan, but we agree what the fee is now, because we've got a bit of a bad experience with Liverpool. They got we took Brad Smith off them for a bit of a silly amount, didn't really do much. And Jordan Ibe, who you will know all too well, the man that takes on about five players and loses it. So yeah, but yeah, it was a shame how it worked out for him. But Nat Phillips is a quality defender, and I think his first game against Boreham Wood, which was, let's say, it's a shambles, really. But I thought, no, we've sold Cookie, and Nat Phillips has come in and just hasn't. It was poor. It was poor.
Yeah.
But from that point onwards, he was brilliant. He was really, really good. Really solid at the back. Built up a good partnership with Kelly. So I think our incomings in the transfer window were good. I'd rather not have lost Cookie, though.
Okay, let's bring in the topic of Scott Parker and his tactics then. So, yeah, I think he's got a lot of doubters to prove wrong this time round, especially as there seems to be a mixed consensus about his approach. What have you found about his approach, certainly from his time so far at Bournemouth?
So, at the start of the season, I thought, he's managed to get the very best out of this very young side, and really brought the best out of them. Things went a little bit wrong after that Preston game. We did have a couple of defeats, a couple of draws. It was nothing too drastic, but one thing that I picked up on was that I didn't think they had really a plan B. Right. And if, say, for example, something went wrong, just seemed a little bit more devoid of ideas. Same could have been said for Jason Tindall, and of course Jason Tindall lost his job. Of course, January come, and we signed Kiefer Moore, and Kiefer Moore was injured at the time.
Yeah. And
to be fair, I was highly doubting him. I thought Forest are catching up, and I didn't know whether or not he was really going to be the man to get us across the line. But he proved in that Swansea game that he did have a plan B. And that plan B was Kiefer Moore. Kiefer Moore's a lot slower than Solanke.
Yeah.
However, he's if you give the ball to him in the box, he will score. Whereas Solanke will sometimes look to pass backwards to build. He's not a greedy player. Solanke is not a greedy player. He'll pass the ball across. He'll make things happen. Kiefer Moore is that little bit more of a target man. He's a big guy. And against Swansea, he turned the game on its head. We were 3-0 down at one point. Scott Parker made some changes, and I thought, we're gonna lose this because Forest were beating Fulham, and then 3-0. Then go to Blackburn, and again he makes a significant contribution, and then that Forest game. So Parker did have a plan B, but the plan B was injured.
Right. Okay.
Am I worried about Scott Parker going into the Premier League, considering his time with Fulham? A little bit. But I think the Bournemouth side now are a lot better than the Fulham side that he had last time round, because he's got those young players. He's got Ryan Christie. We might not have signed many players so far, but what we've got is we've got a basis which is better than Forest. And I think Fulham, they've already lost Nico Williams. They've lost a guy that's gone to Liverpool as well. I can never remember his name. And, of course, Mitrovic never, ever really has done it in the Premier League. So I think we've got a better starting block than the other two.
Let's move on then to your transfer wish list. So as it currently stands, we've got Ryan Fredericks signed on a free from West Ham, and we've also got Joe Rothwell from Blackburn Rovers as well. I have seen there's been a bit of speculation on a certain few players. So Ola Ina from Fulham, for example, so it's worked with Scott Parker before, but also Bertrand Traore, so potentially as a forward to maybe, I don't know, maybe work on the wings as well as being that kind of centre forward at times as well. But yeah, where do you think Bournemouth need to really strengthen?
So it might sound weird because, of course, we had the best defence in the Championship last season. I think we need to strengthen the defence because you look at what we've got. So we've got Zamora on the left-hand side. What happens if he gets injured? Don't think there's many options there. On the right-hand side, we've now got Ryan Fredericks as well as Adam Smith. I think Smith will start. Fredericks will be backup. I think Stacey probably will be let go. And in the centre, we've got Lloyd Kelly and Chris Metham. And Chris Metham is... I've always rated Chris Metham, but I just don't think he's favoured by Scott Parker. And I think there's... Is he a Premier League defender? I'm not so sure. You know, I think we need to look... Nat Phillips has got to be an option. But I think we probably need somebody else because I think Metham has only got a year left. It might be make more sense to actually let Metham go now rather than lose him for free. Other positions, I think the left midfield, we need somebody just for a little bit of backup for Jayden Anthony. That would be brilliant if Matt Ritchie comes back in. Some people are against that. Some people have said about Josh Bowler. I think Josh Bowler would be a good signing. But could you say that he'd probably be similar to Anthony? I think probably would be, to be fair. And I think we do need somebody else up front. Midfield's fine. I think you've got Rothwell in there. You've got Lerma, Cook, Billing, Ben Pearson. If it's a tough game, if it's a feisty game, you know, Ben Pearson will be a brilliant player to throw in there. Some of the Premier League players won't know what's hit really with him. And Christie on the right-hand side. So I think left midfield, one up front, and probably two at the back. The other thing is we need to really look at a second goalkeeper. And... they won't be coming in as number one. And this is where it's a little bit difficult because we've been rumoured and linked with Dragowski, who is at Fiorentina. I think, you know, he'd be a brilliant goalkeeper to have as number two. But personally, is he going to come here and play second fiddle? I don't think he would accept that. You know, when Bryce Samba announced that he was leaving Nottingham Forest, I thought, well... yeah, I'd love him here. But again, so who do we get as a number two? I'm starting to think that we need to look down the route of maybe somebody like Alex McCarthy. I did think of Reading's goalkeeper last year, Luke Southwood. I think, though, maybe he would be a little bit inexperienced, although he's got a full season of Championship football. He hasn't played at this level. Travers has played one game, but which was a fantastic performance against Tottenham a couple of years back. That's why I was really confused why Ramsdale actually got the shirt at the time, because I thought, well, Travers was outstanding in that game, and then the following season, Eddie Howe's put Ramsdale in. I thought, okay, but. Well, look at what Ramsdale's done. Exactly, you know, so in Eddie we trust. But yeah, I think those are the positions, and I think, you know, a backup goalkeeper who can do a job in the Premier League, but won't mind being sat on the bench and coming in when called upon.
Seems to have all the hallmarks of us and Ben Foster potentially, but I don't know if he'd fancy it. Let's see. That's a very interesting kind of conversation to have. But it sounds like there's not too many positions that need filling at this moment in time. So let's go and just push you for an answer around where do you think you'll end up? Because appreciate it's very early. We'll caveat this by saying we're recording on the 11th of July. But let's assume that the season has ended in terms of transfer dealings. Where do you think Bournemouth would end up right now?
I think it would be very, very tough. I think we will be in and around those relegation spots. There is no doubt about that. We're not going to kid ourselves. I think probably around about 16th. And personally, I think the 4 teams that will finish below us will be, I think Leeds will go this season. I think they'll be rock bottom, to be fair. I just don't think Jesse Marsch is that great a manager. I got a lot of stick for that. I think Fulham will go down. And I think probably Southampton. And I know they're the bigger club than us, but I think they will go down. And I think Forest will finish just below us. I think Forest will stay up. But, you know, if you ask me now who the bottom 3 will be, I would turn around and say to you, I think it will be Southampton, Fulham, and Leeds at this moment in time. You know, and I think we'll just stay up.
That's a very interesting combination. I have to say, I think Leeds, I think you're right in saying if they get to a bad start, they go back to square one where they have to get a brand new manager potentially. Fulham, I'm with you on that one. I think they will struggle. I think you just don't know which Fulham side decides to turn up, to be fair. And yeah, I don't know on the third one. I have to say, I did have a feeling that Bournemouth would struggle, but I'm just waiting to see where maybe one club is not going to do as well. Potentially, maybe a Wolves might get dragged into this because I think their transfer dealings haven't been brilliant so far, but it's too early to say at this moment in time. The likes of maybe a Crystal Palace, if they don't get to a good start as well, there'll be a lot of pressure on Patrick Vieira as well. So I think there'll be a number of clubs that will be potentially drawn into that relegation dogfight this season. I don't think it's going to be one club that really suffers badly, but I think at some point there'll be a multitude of different clubs experiencing that relegation mix. So let's wait and see. But more importantly, to you, the viewers, if you agree, let us know in the comments below. But for now, many thanks to Craig for his input around Bournemouth. And
thanks for having me on
the next episode.